Hey everyone, we've got a major winter storm heading for the US this weekend, and this one's going to be huge. It's bringing all kinds of weather hazards, heavy snowfall, which could lead to significant accumulations, a serious, severe weather threat, and even the risk of flooding in some areas. This is shaping up to be one of the biggest winter storms of the season so far, and in today's forecast, I'm going to break down exactly what you need to know. We'll go over where the heaviest snow is expected to fall, the areas most at risk for damaging storms, and what makes this system very different from the winter storms we've seen so far in 2025. But before we get into the weekend storm, let's take a look at what's happening right now across the U.S. There's already a lot of active weather on the East Coast. Just yesterday, we saw a pretty significant severe weather event unfold in Dixie Alley, where two large tornadoes touched down, one in western Alabama and another in eastern Mississippi. Fortunately, that severe threat is winding down with just a few lingering strong storms moving across parts of the Florida Panhandle and Georgia this morning. But before we get into the details, hit the subscribe button, like this video, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for your support. Meanwhile, in the Northeast, we still have snow and freezing rain falling, but that system is gradually moving out. The moisture that's been fueling it from the Pacific is starting to run out, which means we'll actually get a brief dry period, but only for about 24 hours. After that, the real action begins as our next major winter storm starts to develop. This next system is already setting up on the West Coast, where a massive atmospheric river event is dumping heavy rain and snow from California to Oregon. We're seeing significant snowfall in the Sierra Nevada, and some areas along the coastline could pick up as much as 2 to 4 inches of rain just today. As we move through the overnight hours, this system is going to start moving inland, and that's when things really start ramping up. By Friday afternoon and evening, it will begin to organize in the Midwest, bringing light to moderate snowfall across several states. But the real action begins Saturday morning when we'll see snow spreading across the Great Lakes and Midwest while severe weather ramps up in the south. This storm is shaping up to be a major severe weather event, possibly one of the biggest of the year so far. A surge of moisture coming in from the Gulf of Mexico is going to combine with a powerful low-level jet and a deep trough, setting up perfect conditions for severe thunderstorms. Right now, it looks like the biggest threat will be widespread damaging winds, but there's also the potential for large hail and tornadoes, especially if we get discrete supercells forming ahead of the main line of storms. The severe weather risks will start ramping up in the deep south, Dixie Alley and Tennessee Valley by Saturday afternoon, and storms could push as far north as Kentucky, which is very unusual for this time of year. By Saturday evening and into the overnight hours, we expect a long line of intense thunderstorms to develop and push eastward, bringing damaging winds, heavy rain, and possible tornadoes to areas like Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, and even northern Florida. One thing we're watching closely is the possibility of QL circulations, which are quick spin-up tornadoes that can form within a squall line. These tornadoes are often brief, but can still cause serious damage. So that's something we'll be keeping an eye on. There's no doubt this is going to be a major severe weather event, and we'll be covering it live right here on the channel. So if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on so you don't miss any updates. Now let's talk snowfall. The Midwest and Great Lakes will be the first to see accumulating snow from this system, with a general 2 to 5 inches expected in most areas. However, some localized areas, especially in southern Wisconsin and northeast Iowa, could see as much as 6 to 9 inches. Over in northern Ohio and eastern Michigan, we're looking at around 3 to 6 inches, though those totals could increase depending on how the storm evolves. But New England is where this storm really starts to turn into a big deal. This isn't going to be a quick-moving system that's gone in 12 to 24 hours. This storm is going to linger, bringing heavy snowfall from Saturday through Sunday. Northern New England, western New York, and parts of central New England will likely see 6 to 12 inches of snow, with even higher amounts possible in localized areas. Meanwhile, areas farther south, including southern New England, central and eastern Pennsylvania, and New Jersey, will likely see totals ranging from 1 to 6 inches, depending on how far south the heavier snow band sets up. And just when you think winter storms might finally slow down, we actually could see another system develop Tuesday into Wednesday next week. It's still a little too early to know the exact details, but some models are suggesting a system could swing through the Rockies and Central Plains, then track into the Ohio Valley and possibly even the lower Mississippi Valley. If this happens, places as far south as Texas and Arkansas could see some snowfall, which would be very unusual. There's still a lot of uncertainty with this one, so we'll keep tracking it and give you updates as it develops. Farther north into the Central Valley, we're also looking at widespread heavy rain with a slight risk of excessive rainfall stretching across much of the state. This is the kind of storm where if you don't absolutely have to be on the roads, it's best to just stay home. We're expecting significant flooding. Roads will be impassable in some areas. And unfortunately, we're likely to see swift water rescues as people try to drive through floodwaters. Please don't be one of those people. You've heard it before, but I'm going to say it again. Turn around, don't drown. Even just a few inches of moving water can sweep your car away and floodwaters rise fast. In some of these areas, flooding doesn't happen very often, so a lot of people may not realize just how dangerous this is going to be. Stay hyper aware of your surroundings today because this is not your typical rainstorm. And then, of course, there's the snow. The Sierra Nevada is about to get absolutely buried in snow, historic levels of snow. Some spots could see up to 150 inches by the time this storm is done, which is just insane. That is over 12 feet of snow in just a few days. But what makes this even more dangerous is that this isn't going to be the dry, fluffy snow that skiers love. This is going to be the heavy, wet kind that we call Sierra cement. It's the type of snow that brings down trees and power lines, causes major travel disruptions, and dramatically increases the avalanche risk. This could be one of the most significant snowstorms in California's history, and the impacts are going to be felt immediately. Roads will become completely impassable. Power outages are likely. And with this much snow falling in such a short period, it is extremely dangerous for anyone caught outside or traveling in the mountains. If you're in these areas, be prepared for long duration disruptions. And the storm does not stop there. After hammering the west, it's going to push inland and bring significant impacts across the Rockies, the Midwest, and eventually the East Coast. By Friday, we'll see strong winds, heavy snow, and difficult travel conditions in places like Utah, Wyoming, and Colorado. The Denver area could see gusty winds, while the Colorado Rockies will be getting dumped on with even more snow. But the biggest headline as this storm moves east is going to be the severe weather threat in the south. We just had a severe weather outbreak last night, and unfortunately, it looks like another round is coming on Saturday, and this one could be even worse. The Storm Prediction Center has already issued a Day 3 enhanced risk for severe weather from Shreveport, Louisiana to Birmingham, Alabama, covering most of Mississippi and parts of southeastern Arkansas. And the slight risk zone stretches all the way from Houston up to Nashville and Knoxville, Tennessee. This is looking like a pretty significant severe weather setup, with tornadoes, damaging winds, and flash flooding all on the table. Still a little early to get into the exact details, but I am almost certain we will be live streaming this event as it unfolds, so make sure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on. Meanwhile, farther north, we've got major flooding concerns developing across the Ohio Valley and mid-Mississippi River Valley. From Memphis to Lexington, Kentucky, we're looking at 3 to 8 inches of rain in a very short period of time, and that's going to lead to flash flooding and river flooding. The Ohio River and its tributaries could see some significant water rises. And unfortunately, the ground in a lot of these areas is already saturated from recent storms. This could become a very serious situation quickly. So if you live in a flood-prone area, make sure you have a plan in place. The Weather Prediction Center has already issued a moderate risk for excessive rainfall, so this is not something to overlook. On the northern side of the storm, we're also going to be dealing with heavy snow and ice in parts of the Great Lakes and Northeast. From Wisconsin to Michigan, we're expecting 4 to 8 inches of snow. And as this storm moves east, places like upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine could see over a foot of snow. There's also going to be freezing rain and sleet in parts of Indiana, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, which could lead to treacherous travel conditions. And even in southern Ontario and Quebec, we're looking at significant snowfall as the system moves through. And here's the kicker. We're not done yet. There is another potential winter storm brewing for Wednesday, February 19th, and early indications suggest this one could bring snow to the south before moving up into the mid-Atlantic and Northeast. Right now, the long-range models are picking up on this, and the Weather Prediction Center already has a 20 probability of a significant winter storm on February 19th. So winter is far from over, and we could be looking at another round of disruptive weather next week. And speaking of winter, temperatures are going to stay cold for a while. The 6 to 10 day temperature outlook shows much below average temperatures for most of the U.S. through at least February 22nd. Maybe after that, we'll see things warm up a bit, but for now, winter is still holding on strong. That's all I've got for you today. Make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I'll have another update with more details on the severe weather threat for Saturday. I probably won't have a video on Saturday because I'll be live all day covering the storms as they happen. Hit that like button, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.